and welcoming you all. This is the session is ready for Reinventing Your Leadership. It's going to be managed by Roland Friedl. Roland is one of the major consultants that we do have in Pinnacle. Roland has more than 30 years of experience in terms of trainings and being able to coach business leaders, and he has been teaching this specific course in private universities in Austria and in Germany for the last year. Now I'm going to be leaving the floor for Roland and I think I'm going to be better off to give him the control for the presentation.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mounir. Thank you so much. Hope everybody can hear me. I'm sorry for being a little late, but I scheduled in my calendar an hour late. I just came home, and to be honest, I wanted to shave before, but well, who cares? Yeah, I'm here from my home office in Spain, on the island of Mallorca, where I live, and I'm very honored, and thanks for the invitation to share a topic with you that I'm very passionate about the last years. And as Mounir said, I'm a consultant, I'm a trainer, I'm a coach, I'm a sparring partner, but not with a theory background, with a lot of practical background. I spent my first years after university in the corporate world, and I had a very fast career, and becoming the youngest member of board of director of a huge Austrian company. Then 3 years later, I left the company and I established my own companies worldwide, which I run. And the last 20 years, we also run training consulting company in Switzerland, and we just now opened last week a training company on the US market. So what I want to share today is about reinventing your leadership. And what does this mean? When I talk to leaders, not in groups, but face to face, in German we say unter vier Augen, on 4 eyes. They often tell me that they're frustrated, that they have a lot of stress, that they're wasting a lot of time in meetings, they're not satisfied what's going on, they're spending a lot of time on politics. And right now, with what is going on with the COVID-19 worldwide, I guess it's a good time to reflect and think about what can we do differently in the corporate world, beginning with us as a leader. And I want to share you the next around 30 minutes. Just in the beginning, give you a little bit background information, and then you understand where the journey can go. I would like to give you a short recap of the historical evolution of human mankind, and how our evolution as mankind also changed how we work together, how we collaborate together. And then I'll give you a few, what does it mean to become a reinvented leader by organizing a reinvented organization. And then I will also show you a few companies that already started the journey very, very successfully. And I will show you the 3 main pillars of their success, what they do absolutely differently, why they do it, a little bit how they do it with the short of the time. And then you will understand where the journey is going. And at the end, I guess we have A&Qs. Okay. Good, let's start. Mounir, I see a screen, a little bit of the slide, but also a lot of gray. Steuerung. Okay, how can
yeah.
Okay. Can we go one slide back? Can I? Okay, one slide back. Okay. Good. Mounir, can you help me with the presentation? Can you control it, because I have no control how to get forward and back. No, it's not here. Okay, first slide. I cannot click. Ah, here it is. Okay, start on anfangen. Sorry, guys. Okay, can I do it now? Okay, so the background information, yeah, I'm sorry, I will mute my video because here in Spain, I have a lot of challenging with my network. This is quite poor, especially the upload is very poor. So I will delete my video so I can only transfer my voice and you can hear me probably when it's okay for you. I'm coming back. Okay, good. Let's start. A little bit background information. First of all our modern organization or corporates have brought a lot of sensational progress to humanity. That's no doubt, and absolute no doubt. But what we see right now, especially when I talk to managers all over the world, the way we run organization right now has been absolutely stretched to its limits. And especially for managers, for leaders, the life at the top of the pyramids is not much more fulfilling. Because as managers, we spend a lot of time with power games, with politics, with infighting. So it's a lot of stress out there and people are not really happy. They're not focused on what they really have to do, what they're doing. So the question is, could it be differently? What can we do differently about organization? How can we invent a more powerful, a more soulful, a more meaningful way to work together? And is this possible? And so we see on the next slide. Just to ask in the beginning some basic questions. What do organizations need for the next stage of consciousness? How do they look? How do they feel? And is it already possible to describe all the structures, the process and cultures, so we can help also other leaders to set up a similar successful, powerful organization? And can we really create organizations and companies that are free of politics, of bureaucracy, of infights? Can they really be free of stress and burnout? Can it be free of resignation, resentments, and apathy? And is it possible to reinvent organization? And I'm meaning by reinventing leadership. So it's all about creating soulful workplaces where all the talents in the teams can blossom and grow. And I guess everybody of you knows Peter Drucker. For me, he's the godfather of management since many, many years. And he said, the greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence itself. It is to act with yesterday's logic. So it's all about changing our thinking. So we have to reinvent ourselves. We have to reinvent our leadership style. We have to reinvent our organization, what we call reinventing organization leaderships. But I absolutely know that every transition to a new stage of consciousness has ushered in a whole new area in human history. And at every junction, I will go and tip a little bit, has everything changed. From the society going from family bands to tribes to empires to nations. The economy has changed from horticulture to agriculture to industrialization. The power structures have changed. The role of religion has changed. So one aspect hasn't yet received much attention. With every human stage, with every new stage, in human consciousness also came a breakthrough in our ability to collaborate. So with each level that we reach in our consciousness, also change totally how we collaborate and how we work together. I have here a little diagram, and it shows, can you go back, Mounir? And it shows exactly how the changes are going. And when you see it started I go back 100,000 years ago. So when it changed to the red one, it's 10,000 years ago. Then 2,000 years ago, 100 years ago, and then it goes very fast. 10 years ago, we had a change, and 1 year ago, we had a change. And I like to describe a little bit the last 5 colors. We're starting with the red one, Please, the next slide, Mounir. So when you look at the red organization that came up around 10,000 years ago, what was the characteristic? Around 10,000 years ago, we had a consistent exercise of power by the chief to keep the troops in line. What does this mean? So there was one leader came within the tribe who made sure that everybody feels safe, but it was only one person who made the decisions. And it was a very rough time. So like there's still examples on the market like the Italian mafia, street gangs, tribals, militants, like we see in Africa and some countries. But the key breakthrough that's more important was that it began 10,000 years ago it began the division of labor. And it came to command authority. That was in the red zone about 10,000 years ago. On the next slide, around 1,000 years ago in the Amber organization, or 1,000 or 2,000 years ago, the Catholic Church came more here, the military. So it was the breakthrough was that we had more formal rules, which give us the chance to have a stable and scalable hierarchies. And also we began to define processes. So we started to think much more on a long-term perspective than 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago, we have been very present, just thinking about the day, maybe the next day, or maybe the next winter. So we have a lot of food to survive the cold season in some areas, especially here in Europe. But we had no long-term thinking. And now it started to become formal rules and processes. So this was the next step, how we changed in the Amber organization around 1,000, 2,000 years ago. 100 years ago, on the next slide, in the Orange organization, there was another huge breakthrough. So after the Industrial Revolution, multinational companies came across, charter schools came across, and the breakthrough was innovation. You know, the technical evolution started, innovation, accountability, meritocracy. So a lot of change came, and it absolutely changed the human mankind. Yeah, and around 10 years ago, or let's say, yeah, one to 2 decades, you will see on the green one, and the green organization came the last year. So some companies changed their culture, meaning that organizations started to be more culture driven. And the key breakthrough have been that the empowerment came more. So the empowerment of the team members. It was not only the leader who made decisions, so the big boss, the CEO who made decisions, so it came more to empower the teams. Also the culture was more value driven, and it started to become the stakeholder model, means that the owner holds the shares of a company and some other investors, but the work has been done by an empowered team managed by different leaders. And now we go to the next level, and this is the level I want to invite you to have an eye on it. It's called the teal color, the teal organizations. And as I said before, a few companies already started with it very, very successfully. And the key breakthroughs, the 3 pillars that made them very, very successful is, and we go deeper in a few minutes, is self-management, wholeness, and evolutionary purpose. And give me a second, I will explain you a little bit later. And before I start with Ivana and Archie, in the teal organization is seen in the new order, is seen as a living entity with its own creative potential and evolutionary purpose. Can you imagine when you look at a forest, there are different plants growing, there are different animals living in a forest. But is there any plant, any animal who says, I'm the boss, I am going to structure everything, I'm going to organize everything, I'm going to tell you the rest of the animals, the rest of the plants, how to grow, how to do? No, it's a very complex living entity. And now we understand organizations always also as a living complex entity. And even Anna said it very nice. It says every challenge you encounter in life is a fork in the road. You have the choice to choose which way to go, backward or forward, breakdown or break through. So the question is, how can we go to the next level? And for me, this quote says everything. That's why I call it Reinventing Leadership, because the general rule seems to be that the level of consciousness of an organization cannot exceed the level of consciousness of its leader. This means it starts with us as leaders. We have to go to step forward, become a role model for the whole rest of the management and the whole rest of the team, meaning for the whole organization. And on the next slide, I want to a little bit give a short summary about the different steps in the evolution of humankind and what and I'll get a better understanding. You remember the red one was about 10,000 years ago, and then the need was immediately satisfying my need. This was so important. Then about 1,000 years ago, when we churches organized 1,000, 2,000 years ago, here also in Europe, religion comes more important. Military was organized. States were formed. It was more about rules and group norms. Yeah, everybody has to follow certain rules and group norms. It was very important. When you leave it, you became an outsider, or they kicked you out of the society. In the orange, about 100 years ago, or 150 years ago, starting with the Industrial Revolution, it became more the egoistic, ambitious. It's all about me. I want to be successful. I want to do this. It was all about me. And what we now see is in this behavior change, in this consciousness change, is we go more from external to internal. So in the team organization right now, it's more about inner rightness. It's more about service to the world. It's more about calling and purpose. But it's not just stated quotes on a nice website by your PR organization. It's how reinventing organizations and their reinvented leaders really run their business. So let's see what it means going teal. What does it mean reinventing leadership? And I just summarized a few thoughts about it. And when I go on one point that is very important, is focus on strengths and not on failures of what's wrong. So everybody's feedback, everybody can grow, everybody can work in a safe environment. They can bring in the talents. There are no mistakes, there are only opportunities. Integration of mind, body, and soul, so the wholeness factor, the be true of yourself, striving for wholeness, yourself, others, life, and nature. We know that we cannot grow and grow and grow. There is a limit right now. Everybody see it right now. It's not possible for endless growing. But what we can do is we can grow differently. And I guess it's not about becoming faster, taller, stronger, going higher or whatever. It's more about going deeper and becoming more flexible. And we see it in the last, actually I've been seeing it in the last 9 months, especially here in Europe, in March, when we went to the first lockdowns, how corporate react on this pandemic. And some managers really panic. Yeah. And all what they tell me is, hey, when it's over, we go back to the normal. Everybody wants to go back to normal and do more of the same, but this is not working. We have to think and act differently in the future. This is much more important. And on the next slide, I give you some examples of organizations that already started this journey very successfully. It's just a few one. Why do I show you these ones? It's because they're from different countries. So it's working everywhere. They're from different industries. They're different sizes. I guess here the smallest one is from the US. And I also brought you AES, an energy sector. It's global, working with 40,000 employees. So it works for every scale, for every industry, for every region. But let's have a deeper look what they're exactly doing. As I mentioned before, the the three breakthroughs, I call the three pillars of success, what they're doing differently, are the followings. And before I start to explain a little bit, I want to tell you from my own experience when I consult companies who want to go in a new direction, meaning becoming more responsible leaders to their teams, becoming what I call reinvented leader, to reinvent their organization, to make the company strong for any turbulence to stay, to become more flexible, so to be fit and profitable, because actually at the end it's all about profitability, to be profitable in the future. And some companies already working on all three pillars, some only on two or on one, but they just started, okay? So let's talk about the first pillar is self-management. Self-management means they operate very actively, even on a large scale, with a system based on peer relationship, with the need for either hierarchy or consensus. What does this mean? This means that these companies, and please don't be shocked what I'm telling you right now, they don't have a manager like we know it from the old times. So the manager has an absolutely different role. He becomes an advisor to independent working teams. I give you an example. One of the companies you recognized before is a Dutch company. They have 7,000 employees or 8,000 employees in the service industry. They take care about people who are at home, they are sick or old. So they're in the healthcare industry. This company was founded a little bit more than a decade ago, and then the owner decided to go a different way, and now they have 75, almost 80% of market shares in the Netherlands. They're very successful, so all the clients want to go with them. And a very interesting thing is that a lot of people in this industry are leaving their company and want to work together with this company, because the reason is many people love to work in self-management teams. They have to have a team of small people. I'll give you an example, a team from 8 to 10 people, and they organize everything. They are looking for clients. They decide which client they're taking. They decide about pricing. They decide about hiring team members. They decide about the salary. They decide everything by themselves. But when they need advice, I'll give you an example. They hire a team member and they need some advice about contracting and legal stuff. Then they call the HR manager who comes from the headquarters. They tell them their issues. The HR manager gives his expertise and advice. And now it comes to difference. It's very important to understand. And the team can accept it or not. Okay? That's the difference. So there's no authority dependency between the manager and the team anymore. So this means when all the teams, and they have almost 900 teams working independently in this company, accept the advice of the manager, he still has a job. If they don't do, they have to look for a new manager. And this is also when they have an IT problem, they call the IT manager. When they have a marketing problem or a sales problem or any issue, they call the managers for getting advice, but they don't have to follow if they don't like. That's the difference. Then it's all about wholeness. And wholeness means, especially when, we as a human being, we are a person, but we as a person, we have different rules. For example, myself, I'm a male human, so I'm a man. I'm Roland as a person, but I have a role as a man in business. I have a role as a man in my relationship. I have a role as a man to my kids. I have a role as a man to my friend, and so on and so on. And as a whole person, we have four aspects. It's the ratio aspects, it's the emotional aspect, it's the intuition, and it's the spiritual aspect. And most of us are covering 3 out of 4, and they only show the rational aspect. And this means we are wearing a mask when we do business, or we're wearing a mask in different situations where we play a role. And we all know that this is at the end not fulfilling. We all know that this affects stress and burnout because we are wearing a mask. So the second pillar is the wholeness of each individual in the teams. And I will tell you a little bit later. And the third pillar is the evolutionary purpose. And it's so important to understand when you ask employees, what is the most important thing for you when you work for somebody? And it's not always the salary. It's not always about the environment. It's not always about if the boss is friendly. What they really want to do is that they want to know the goals of the company, and it has to have a purpose for them. Everybody wants to do something that makes sense, that has a purpose. Okay, good. On the next slide, I go a little bit deep in the details in the next slides. Self-management. So you have self-organized teams. You have coaches when they're needed. So they call the managers coaches, not managers anymore. They call them coaches, as I mentioned before. So there's almost no staff function. Everybody does almost everything, or this means that every team member does his work he has to do, what we called in the past a job description. But maybe one team member says, okay, I go also responsible in this team for IT. The other one says, I also go responsible in this team for innovation. I also go responsible for, so everybody says, okay, I like this, I'm interested in this. I bring my knowledge, my expertise to the team. And actually what's more important is that this decision-making is fully decentralized. There are much less meetings, and the focus is on team performance and many other things. I don't want to go too much deeper, just to give you a short overview of self-management teams. Later in the Q&A, we can go deeper if you want. When we look at the wholeness practice, it's all about, on the next slide, you will see that it's more, wholeness means about nobody's wearing a mask. Everybody is seen as a full person with honest discussions about individual time commitments and distributing, taking, recruiting, interviews for future career. So everybody is seen as a whole thing. And this is very important, and people really love and appreciate it when they're seen as a whole human being and not just at the rational part in the business. But we can answer this later. Just for the time issue, on the evolutionary purpose, you see, as I mentioned before, that organizations are seen as a living entity with its own evolution process. It's much too complex to control it in a hierarchy systems that we had in the past. And what I also see is that, especially when I work with startup companies who can react much faster on the market because they have less meetings, they're wasting less time in endless meetings and meetings and meetings, they can react much faster to market's need. The change management is no longer relevant as organizations constantly adapt them within. So they're constantly growing by learning and adapting. The learning culture is very important. Also, they choose, for example, their suppliers if they fit with the purpose or not. Yeah. The concept of competition is irrelevant because it's all about team effort. It's all embraced to the pursuit of purpose. Growth and market share is only important in as much they help achieve the purpose. So it's all about being purposeful and meaningful. So the basic assumptions are that this is working about self-organization, of self-management in teams is what is needed. It needs trust. So it means that we relate to one another with an assumption of positive intent. It's all about information decision-making. This means that all business information is open to all and not only to a few managers. Okay? Trust the people. People can handle information. They know exactly what they're talking about and not. It's also about responsibility and accountability. This means that we each have full responsibility for the organization. And if we sense that something needs to happen, we have a duty to address it. It's not acceptable to limit our concerns to the remit of our roles. For the wholeness, it needs equal worth. It means that we are all of fundamental equal worth. It also needs a safe and caring workplace. This means that any situation can be approached from fear and separation, or from love and connection. And we choose love and connection. And it's also about separation. Also about learning, what I mentioned before. Every problem for me is an invitation to learn and grow, because we always be learners, and when we stop learning, we lose. We have never arrived. The journey is never ending. And when we talk about wholeness, it's also about relationships and conflicts. My strong belief is we cannot change other people. We only can change ourselves, and we as leaders have to start and respect everybody else world. And when we talk about evolutionary purpose, it's all about collective purpose. It's about individual purpose. It's about planning the future. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, it's also about profit. Because in the long run, there are no trade-offs between purpose and profits. If we focus on purpose, believe me, will follow for sure. And on my last slides, you will see why team organizations are so successful. And this is just a short recap. They are successful through the purpose. They are successful because the distribution of the power. They are so successful because they never stop learning. They are so successful because they listen to each talent in the team. They are so successful because they're chopping up the ego. Less energy is wasted in compliance. Less energy, and this is one point that all the managers stresses, and Mounir and myself, we had a long talk about it, is no more energy is wasted in endless meetings, gatherings, and meetings, and no decisions are made. And on the last slide, you will see they're very successful because they have a better sensing through self-management. They're much closer to the market. I give an example. Vavi, V-A-V-I, it's a French company, very successfully. It's a metal company. They produce components for the automotive industry in France, especially on BMW, Mercedes, and Audi. What they have custom teams. So they have an Audi team, they have a BMW team, they have a Mercedes team. And when one of the sales guys is selling components, let's say for Audi, then he goes directly to the Audi team, and the Audi team decided if they take the order, they can tell you exactly, because they have to fulfill it, if they can do it, how they can do it, and how long it takes. So it's much more effective and with less meetings. So better decision making. It's more decision making than in traditional organizations. It's timely. They're more on the time, and that's a nice saying. And as the saying goes, when a fisherman senses a fish in a particular spot, by the time his boss gives his approval to cast the fish has long moved on. And this is why we waste so much time on meetings instead of making decisions and being faster on the market. And last but not least, very successful because of the evolutionary purpose. And my questions are for you as leaders to participate in these meetings, and I thank you a lot for your attention, is, are you ready now for reinventing your leadership? To have a deeper look on it, you're really invited to have a discussion on this if you're interested in. I thank you very much for your attention, and I hope I could give you more inspiration than information. Thank you so much, and thank you, Mounir, for the chance to talk here to the audience. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Now let me stop the sharing, and now we're open for some questions. And I have seen that Sharif wanted to have a question like 5 minutes ago. Can you go now, Sharif?
Yes. Thank you, Roland, for this valuable session. Very insightful and very informative. You mentioned something about people not having to the self-managed part. You mentioned when you were talking about the self-managed style of management. Now, how are you going to implement that and integrate that with, especially these days when everything is just online and remote, and people are not just they're not in the same office anymore. So how does that integrate, especially when you have a I mean, obviously this will be much more difficult if you grow in an organization is bigger. So how would that be implemented best? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's a very good question. As I mentioned before, with a startup company, it's much more easier to implement all these things. With larger companies, from my experience, what larger companies do is they're not implementing all three pillars on the same time, because otherwise they crush the company. They do it step by step, and mostly they start with the wholeness part in the beginning, and then they go to the self-management. In the self-management, when we implement the self-management part to companies, we first always start with an intense coaching with the managers, because many managers are so scared that they're losing power and influence on the team. What is absolutely not true at the end. But what we believe is that we lose our power to the team. And so we start with coaching the managers so that they learn about their fears, that they learn about how to build up confidence, how to build up trust. And at the end, to be honest, it's about building up their self-esteem again. That's how we start. And then when they say, okay, I understand it, I'm ready for this journey, because it starts with the management. When I'm ready for the journeys, then we talk to the team and introduce the team to the new approach. And then we form teams and setting teams together, depending on the industry they're working in. And then the team becomes a self-running organization. And I always say, let's go with the flow and trust your team members, trust them. And then a team member says, hey, besides my job description, I'm interested in IT. Maybe I can do this, or I'm interested in this specific topic that is important for our team. And so everybody has a certain role, but the leading function, what we call the management function, is rolling in the team. And everybody takes his or her full responsibility for the decision. And yeah, that's how it works. I hope it answers your questions.
It does, and actually would like to hear from anyone in the audience if they have this setup in their organization, and if they will be able to implement that in their companies.
You can type in the chat or unmute yourself and then answer that. Okay, so questions again. Right, I do have one, Roland, which is mainly related with this kind of, how can I say it, evolutionary type of organization, like the ultra-modern organizations and so on. And I believe, and I am taking pride of being with Pinnacle, because I see that Pinnacle is absolutely what you were saying in terms of how are we managing the thing. But what about the teams? Some of the teams members and people joining in would still rather thinking like Peter Drucker was saying in the old age, where I need a manager and I need some job description, and I need to understand exactly what I'm going to be doing, so that I'm being fulfilled with it, and I do it, and that's it. So how do you deal with this kind of mixed team members?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the question is that the last decades we have been trained in school and university to give away our responsibility. Everybody else will check for us and fix for us. We have an insurance company that fixes when something is burning. We have an that fix you when you get sick. So we always give responsibility away. You always will have people who say, I need a leader. It doesn't mean that in a reinventing organization, there is not a leader anymore. But what it means is that everybody in the team can and is a leader on a certain topic. Okay, so it's more about a shared leadership, and the old manager, the old manager is a coach that coaches the team on certain topics where they're missing the skills. But you will always have people who just want to do their job and nothing else. The question is, and maybe it's a tough one, but we really have to ask this question, will these people survive in the future? That's the question.
Yes, absolutely, and this is exactly what we're saying, because when it is this kind of the new evolution in terms of everything that is happening on the business dynamics and the market dynamics, it's more of having the self motivation in order to be able to achieve and do something. If you're not, and if you want to join in the old team, those kind of organization will not last for long.
Yeah, what came to my mind right now, it was in the 60s. I guess most of you will remember JFK, John F. Kennedy, and I guess it was JFK. He said, "Don't ask the government what it can for you. The question is what you can do for the country." Yeah, and I think we have to come back and not always, okay, it's all about me. What can I get? The question is, what is my contribution? What is my responsibility? My contribution to the whole organization. So the question is, are we all committed to the whole entire organization or not? And that's just a learning process. And actually, some people will fall out. Yeah, this can happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And I hear now a question from Tony Cook. Good to see you back, Tony. This is a new way to lead and to take the to take it further. Overall, coach leaders is interested to coach their SMEs to be better than they themselves are. So yeah, absolutely. And I leave that to Roland to comment.
Yeah, but what we do in consulting when we help organizations to transform, we always start from top down. So in the old paradigm, I remember 20 years ago when I coached, consulted, or delivered training to companies, it was always from down to bottom. So the managers came to us and say, okay, make my team more successful, make my team more blah 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 blah, more efficient. And that's not the way it's working. So it's from top to down. So we always start with the C-level. If the C-level is not 100% committed, we don't start our consulting, because I can guarantee 100% success when everybody is committed and following the path. So we start at the C-level, then so we coach the C-level. The next step is the executive management, and then we go down to the team. That's always the way. Yeah, but it always starts with the Sharif.
How long is this training/coaching program, Roland? How long does it take for you to be able to deliver that, and then for the customers to start seeing results?
Well, this really depends on different factors. It depends on the size of the company, how many employees are working there. It depends on the level of I wouldn't say level of education, about their level of consciousness, how open they are. It depends on different factors. It depends on very much on their culture. Is there a learning culture or not? It depends on their past leadership style. Are they used to a more open leadership style, meaning a more laissez-faire leadership style, or are they used to the leaders are always on their side, always correcting them? It depends on many factors. But I would say when you have, well, I did a company, 1,500 people on the headquarters, and I guess another 2,000 on different places. It's to get the first benefits. It's a process about at least 18 months. At least 18 months. Because what I mentioned before is you cannot change all pillars on the same time, because then you crush it to the wall. It's impossible. That's not working. Yeah.
So it's
you have to do
like
it step by step.
Growing into the organization, like it's blending it into whatever systems they are implementing and becoming a second nature type of thing.
Yeah, it's an ongoing process, and also we as consultants, we also learn during the process, and it's always about learning, adapting. There is not one, I say, one miracle thing you can change. It's always learning, adapting, but always together with the client. Yeah, always together with the client.
Yeah.
So what I call it, I don't call it any more coaching or training or consulting. I call it more sparring. I see myself as a sparring partner for the client.
Absolutely. As what we are always saying, that we're taking the people to the top of their potentials. So in Pinnacle, this is what we believe in. We believe that everyone has his own potential to become a leader, and this is how we take it the journey to climb up. And I think here we have Adnan. Adnan is asking, as it becomes a challenge to keep our teams motivated despite of the conflicts, who do you look up for inspiration or mentorship? And I would definitely be understanding of what Adnan is asking for. Working in a large organization and very much result-oriented organization where it's tough environment for that. So go ahead, Roland.
Okay. So is my understanding, the question is how to inspire my team? Is it that what it means, despite obstacle and conflicts? Is it about how I inspire my team? Okay. Is this the question, Adnan?
I would say who to look up, or Adnan, here you are. Please answer for yourself.
Yeah, hi Roland. Right, I mean, basically what I meant here is that obviously, we as managers or as leaders, obviously we deal with a lot of challenges in today's tough environment, right? Because we're looking for results, we're looking for quick wins and things like that. So how do we keep ourselves, also inspirational, or who can we look up to, to inspire us?
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Adnan. Well, the thing is, and this was my experience many years ago when I was in the corporate world as a manager. When you're working on a very high level, then you're quite alone. There's nobody you can talk to. Your wife doesn't understand you. You don't want to bring the bullshit at home. And actually, as male humans, we're always very competitive. So we don't want to talk with somebody else about our fears, our anxieties, our doubts, whatever, our pressure. So what I learned years ago is to find a good coach or mentor or sparring partner where I can share all my thoughts and get new ideas from outside. Because when we always try to solve new problems with old behaving, and that's not working. It's very, very helpful from somebody from outside. Maybe you heard the term thinking out of the box, and I strongly believe it's about thinking there is no box.
Yeah.
And this means get support from outside, somebody you trust, and look for a sparring partner for all this process. I think it's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process.
Okay.
But it's important to be self-motivated. Starts with the leader. It always starts with it. As we say in Germany, the fish stinks on the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
I may just add that it's Adnan. It can be inside your organization or outside of your organization. It's again where you can have the trust mechanism that Roland is saying, and that means that when you trust someone, if he is your direct manager or not, something that you can speak up to, think about your fears, and speak more openly about the challenges that you are facing. And once you do that, you will be able to start and to spot the people who are genuinely interested in making you a better person, and the people who are only looking for the results coming from you. So, and this will definitely happen inside of your organization. You would be amazed that there are some people, when you touch bases on the personal level and you start giving them the idea of openness and real need for the support and motivation and inspiration, they would give it to you. And again, it's all related with the trust that all what you say is not going to be held against you.
Sure. Thank you, Mohamed.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Roland. Cheers.
And we have a question from Mustafa. Mustafa is saying, through this rough time of COVID-19 and performance of companies, they are more focused on profit rather than risking more change through new leadership styles. Should this approach be postponed till after the COVID is over, or start slowly? At which level do we start with?
That's a good one.
Yes,
Thank
absolutely.
you, That's a good one. Okay, I can. It's a quick answer. If you want to survive, change immediately. If you want to die, stay with it. I give an example. When I love running. I had a running career. When I run a marathon in the desert, and we all know that sometimes when it's heavy raining, the water can increase very fast. Yeah, even in the desert. And when you're a good runner, and the water is increasing, and the water is coming, it's not a good idea to try to run faster. Maybe it's a better idea to learn swimming. And I strongly believe, and I look at myself, that the COVID-19 pandemic is a very good time to sit down after the shock phase, what happened, all the changes that came up to us, all the obstacles, really to use the time and reflect. Where do I want to go? Where do I want to go as a leader? Where do I want to go with my team, with my organization? It's a good time to reflect, to really to stop, to breathe and reflect. And it's not a good advice to go back to old and try it harder. At the long edge, it's not working. So it's a good time to start. But as I mentioned, it's not about turning around the whole organization in one day. It's not a good one. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome, Mustafa. Okay, any more questions or comments? Right. I think we have 1 minute to go. So final wording from you, Roland.
Well, I think there's not much to say, but much to do. Don't let us waste time. Let's start doing. And if there are any other questions are occurring, please send it to Mounir Pinnacle, and he will forward me, and I will come back to you if you need any advice. I'm happy to help you or give you a book recommendation, whatever you need.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Narendra, we can take this after that. Unless it's very explicit, so that we can take some few minutes more. Yes. No. Okay. Thank you so much, Tony.
Thank you.
All right. Okay.
Maybe 1 point, Mounir. I mean, the thing is, it's not about changing it from the world is not changed in one day, but just reflect yourself. Use this the next days or hours and reflect yourself. Are you happy as a leader? Do you feel fulfilled? Does this make sense to you? Are you feel mentally and physically? Do you have stress? And if you want to change something, go for it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Roland. Thank you all for attending this Pinnacle Live Webinar. Always pleasure to see you, and hopefully we are always gonna be delivering some values for your valuable time in that. So much appreciated your time, and see you next time in 3 weeks' time, inshallah. Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.